Okay, so welcome uh, to the 8 verses of training the mind. So we'll just first go through the verses once again. I think it's nice to read the verses. Somehow it embeds itself in us. And here are the verses. So maybe a few I can read, and like four I can read, and four you can read, Snehi. So if you could just go through verse 1 to 4. Your voice is not clear.
Is it better now?
Yeah, now it's good. Now it's good. Yeah.
Words always
It's again disturbed, the voice. It's cracking. Can't hear you. It's like as if something is moving. So the voice is not clear.
there must. Is it better?
It gets better, but then it kind of waves back again. Okay. Okay. So maybe someone else can read because it would not be clear then. Huh? Yeah, okay. So, Chavi or Jasmine, whoever feels ready, we were actually going to read verses 1 to 4. One person can read 1 to 4. Snehi doesn't have a nice connection, so her voice is cracking. So, if Chavi would be interested, or Jasmine, if you could, anyone could read verses 1 to 4, and rest of them I can read.
Sorry, Monica, I have again Kabir with me.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
That's completely fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, it's Saurabh. Saurabh, you want to read verse 1 to 4?
Sure, I do have had a hectic day, but I can try. Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
verse 1 is I just got the reminder, so I thought of joining.
Yeah, good. Good to have you.
Thank you. So verse 1 is always hold others as dear and precious. By thinking of all sentient beings as more precious than a wish fulfilling jewel or accomplishing the highest aim, I will always hold them supremely dear. Verse 2 is consider myself as the lowest among all. Whenever I am in the company of others, may I regard myself as the lowest of all, and from the depth of my heart, cherish others as supreme. Verse 3, avoid afflictions as soon as they arise. In my every action, I will watch my mind, and the moment destructive emotions arise, I will confront and avoid them strongly, as they will destroy both myself and others. Verse 4, may I cherish this precious treasure. Whenever I see beings who are wicked in nature or those overwhelmed by negativities and suffering, I will cherish them as something rare, as though I had found a priceless treasure. I will learn to keep all these practices contented by.
Yeah, that's okay, Saurabh. Thank you so much. Thank you for reading. So, so you read verse 1 from 1 to 4. I think it's as you were going through, I was just looking at it again, and it's beautiful to see that it's hard. All these verses are very, very hard, and it's not an easy job to let go of the ego, which we are always trying to protect, and for whatever is in front of me and whoever is in front of me, whether the person is harming me, that is a precious treasure. So it's a risk, it's a difficult path, but it's a beautiful path, because the moment we embark upon it, it's like a win-win situation, because everything that comes on the way can be then made into a raw material for your own progress. And as we progress as human beings, we are able to spill less of poison around, which we always, in our ignorance keep on doing. So again, beautiful verses, and just by reading them enough, something goes inside, which is so beautiful. So yeah, we have verses 5 to 8 also. uh, and if anyone wants to read, I can read. I don't know. Jasmine was not ready. I think Kabir is around. Snehi, is your microphone okay? Would you like to read? In case it's okay.
Yeah,
Monica, sorry, can I interrupt? The thought of understanding what are these verses? Who is the author of these? Sorry if I
Okay.
missed.
So maybe you can refer back to our first session. I can share the recordings with you. So these are verses on 8 verses on mind training by Shanti Deva, and it's coming from Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and these verses are practices for a bodhisattva, a person who wants to be enlightened on the path, but not for the sake of himself, but for the sake of all of us, the whole of existence. And the history, you can maybe, we didn't discuss much history, but maybe you can refer back to the previous recordings. That would give you an idea. Yeah, so it's basically inner work. We are working on ourselves through these verses.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. So Snehi, please read verse 5, 6, 7, and 8. Yeah.
the verse 5. Accept on
Your voice is still not clear. I'm so sorry. It would have been lovely if you read, but yeah, something is not getting across. It's very, very blurry. So I'll read on behalf of you. Yeah, I'll read. Verse 5. Accept the loss on oneself and give the victory to others. Whenever someone out of envy treats me unfairly with scolding, insults, and more, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer the victory to others. So, this is the verse that we are going to take today. We had done until verse 4 last time. And verse 6 also will come along because both of them are very conjoined. View those who harm us as a spiritual teacher. Even when someone whom I have helped or in whom I have placed great hopes harms me very unfairly, may I view that person as a true spiritual teacher. So these two we will take up today, and the rest too I'll read. Taking and giving, verse 7. In short, both directly or indirectly, may I offer every happiness and benefit to all my mothers. And why is it saying mothers? Because all the beings, so many lifetimes we have been through, and all the beings have at some point or another have been my mothers. So that's one way of looking at it. And secretly take upon myself all the harm and suffering of my mothers. Verse 8. All things are like illusions. I will learn to keep all these practices untainted by thoughts of 8 worldly concerns. 8 worldly concerns are these poles of duality, running towards pleasure and running away from pain. So, pleasure, pain are two. Then, hope and fear, running towards hope, running away from fear, 4. And running towards fame, running away from defame, 6. And I think there is running towards happiness and running away from suffering. So, if I'm not wrong, these are the total 8 worldly concerns. So, in the duality of these poles, we are always getting more and more suffering. Untainted by thoughts of 8 worldly concerns, may I recognize all phenomena are like illusions. Phenomena is anything that is limited by time. So all the meetings, all the happenings that happen in life, all the thoughts, all the feelings, anything that is limited in time is phenomena. May I recognize all phenomena are like illusions, and without any clinging gain freedom from bondage. So we will listen to something on verse 5, which is, whenever someone out of envy treats me unfairly with scolding, insults, and more, may I accept the loss upon myself and offer victory to the others. So I'll just play the teaching and then we can share our reflections after that. Yeah, it's this one.
The next two verses, 5 and 6, they are basically dealing with the same problem that, you know, people who are difficult for whatever reason, what to do. Everybody on 5 and 6? Number 5. Whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others. One very famous, I think, one very famous Lama, just reading those two lines about I will take defeat upon myself and give the victory to others was such an extraordinary idea that he dropped everything and went off to find a teacher who could teach this. And after traveling around for many years, he found somebody that was Chikawa, I think, and eventually wrote a very famous book on Lojong. So when anybody says out of envy or for whatever reasons really, does me wrong by attacking or belittling me. So normally when people criticize us or say bad things about us or in any way try to get the better of us, our natural response is to defend ourselves and to try to turn the tables on them. And so here it's saying, basically, why bother? You know, there's so much, everybody has to be the victor. Why not let them be the victor? If that makes them happy, it's yours, you know. This actually has practical applications. Quite recently, a friend of mine, her father died, and he left his money to her and her brother, who he himself is very wealthy, the brother, but as often happens when you have wealth, your only thought is to get more wealth. And so he wanted to take her to court to contest the will, which of course would then be years and years going through the courts and endless lawyers, fees, and so forth. And so she remembered this verse. And she thought, if getting all this extra money on top of the millions he already has is going to make him happy, let him be happy. You know, I can get on with my life without all this extra money and without all the hassle. So she just said to him, okay, you take it. If you want it that much that you're willing to take your sister to court for it, then it's yours. Take it, be happy. And so she got on with her life. But if she felt, oh, this is so unjust, which it was, nobody's saying it's just. But if she if she clung to that idea, this is very unfair, this is very unjust, actually I'm quite a poor woman, and he is so wealthy, why does he want something which my father intended that we both should have? If he wants to take me to court, I'll fight him every inch of the way. She would still be caught up in that, you know. And the only person that ever gains from these law courts are the lawyers, as we all know. And so she just cut it right there. Okay, If you want it, it's yours. Be well, be happy. So in many cases, actually, to just do that just solves the problem. Then you can go on instead of trailing all this stuff with you. Oh, why did he say that? Why is he doing that? That's so unfair. I don't deserve it. You know, how can I get my own back? Then, in the end, as they say, we do to ourselves what only our worst enemy would wish for us. Because we get endlessly embroiled in all these things. And whether we win or whether we lose, in the end, in that way, we lose. So, also, when people say bad things about us and criticize us, we should ask ourselves first, well, is what they are saying true? Because if it's true, and maybe we hadn't noticed it, but they did, then thank you very much. You know, you have put a light on a floor which previously was in darkness. I didn't see it. Now I see it, so thank you. And then if it's not true, then why worry? I mean, you know, it's not true anyway, so that's their problem. That's how they see it. And, you know, if that makes them happy to think like that, then let them be happy. And then, you know, we can just get on with our lives. We don't have to carry all this stuff with us. Because in any life, you're going to get people who are going to support you, and you're going to get people who are going to create problems. And if we just endlessly magnify the problems and we get caught up in that, then, you know, our whole life ends up being a problem. And we are, as I say, are doing to ourselves what only somebody who really wishes ill towards us would wish for us.
So, taking a pause here and repeating the verse again for all of us. Whenever someone out of envy does me wrong by attacking or belittling me, now this is happening all the times, you know, with us, something or the other, it's always as at conflict. I will take defeat upon myself. This is really beautiful. And give the victory to others. Can we do this? You know, can we experiment with this? It's pretty challenging because all the time we are always, the ego self is always trying to defend, you know, how do I take a stand for myself? How do I defend myself? How do I tell the other person that I am right and, you know, the other one is wrong? And this is like all the energy, restless energy that goes outside all the time and bangs its head on the wall and always remains empty handed. That energy now settles down within. And I am experiencing that this cannot be done if I am not anchoring my mind somewhere within, like with the breath, for example. Because without that shamatha, as we say, you know, this equanimity, the poise of equanimity within, it is impossible that I would not try to attack the other and would not try to prove myself to the outwardly, you know, whatever the situation is. So if now I'm practicing to keep the mind home with the breath and loving the inner stillness and space and clarity, then I can easily let others win. You know, that there is no point trying to prove myself. And the restless energy that usually goes outside now settles down within. And the other thing that happens is that whatever is done to us, mostly they say that it is a result of a previous something. Like I may have done to something else, somebody else in some previous life or maybe this lifetime. I may not recollect. And that is the same thing comes back to me sooner or later. Now, when it is coming back to me, if I react again, then I'm accumulating again more reaction and more karma, you know, is being accumulated. But now when I let it come and I don't react from my negative pattern, don't try to prove anything. Then something shifts within, and it also has the power to change something outside. So I think it's a very powerful uh, verse if we can practice it. Only if we can, otherwise it has no power if we can't practice it. Yeah. Yeah. So any reflection, we can take up any reflection.
Hi, Monica.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
More than reflection, I think this is where my doubt starts always. So, taking an example from Gita itself, wherein if I were Yudhishthira, I could have said, okay, Duryodhana, you take everything from me, I won't want to fight. But Lord himself wanted and was to fight. So that's the first conflict. Second one, I think in one of the Gospel of Ramakrishna, he has that example. I think there was a snake, and he was very aggressive to the kids in the village. But one yogi came and told the snake not to be so rude to the kids. So he became very spiritual, very what you call gullible kind of living being. After a year, when the same yogi came back, he saw the snake in a very dilapidated condition, very almost towards the dead part. So when he asked the snake, so snake said, because you told me not to be aggressive, I was not doing any harm to the kids. That's how they now retaliated, and that's how my condition is like that. And yogi said, I did not tell you to be aggressive, but I did tell you to be at least hissing them, not biting them, and at least you could have hissed them. So these two examples always confuses me. Should I retaliate with my enemies? Should I go to the court and say, no, this is not your right because this is my dharma? Or should I drop the gun and say, okay, you are the winner? So that's where I always confuse myself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty relevant confusion, I think, to come up. But I feel, Saurabh, that most of the times uh, our fight is very petty. It's not that I am taking a stand for something which is in accordance with dharma. Most of the times our fight is really petty. I'm just trying to prove that I am the one who is right. Do you see that happening, in our
Yeah.
day-to-day life?
Yes.
So it's those things that I think
Mm.
are being hinted towards. That can we leave this stubbornness to prove ourselves in our petty fights? Let the other win. What would
No,
happen if the other would, maybe name you something, or, defame you in a manner? What would happen? Most of the times, our fights are petty, and I think this is a hint towards such kind of fight. Yeah.
See, to me, this comes as the outer action is based on what situation requires. To me, it's more about internal state, not feeding your own ego. I could be fighting the person, but my internal or intention, like internal state, could be different. So the outer action could be exactly same if I have to defend myself. So even if I have to fight the, you know, case in the court, say, in practical terms, like if I have to do certain things, literally fighting a case right now. This was my confusion too. I was in this inner conflict myself. But I came to a peace that the outer action is based on the outer circumstances. Don't internalize it. So my internal, I made a peace with that. Now, whatever is required on the outside action, I take it, and then I don't take it inside me. I don't make it egoic. Like, if I win, it's not about, it's just whatever comes up. So it's kind of freeing in a way. So I think it's more about internal state. So if I have to fight outside, because we live in a worldly way, right? So whatever is required on the outside, I need to do that. So I think it's same thing I find personally. I had around my circle a lot of charity people do, but I have seen in charity ego comes in. It's like showing up, I am doing charity, but then there I see charity which is self-love. Action is the same, but it took me a couple of years to understand what really bothered me. Something didn't sit right with, I was in an organization, and that was that that ego that came with, as if I am doing. So it looked like a charitable work. To me, it was no different than, and not in a judgmental way too. It's a very subtle thing, I think. कहीं पे तुम्हारे में भी. So I'm not saying it in a judgmental way, so I'm just talking about my own experience. So वो तुम अपने आप में वो देखते हो कहाँ पे you have that too. So I think so this was a bit of a confusion for me in the past couple of months too. So I'm coming to terms to that. Again, I don't know where this even further it takes me to some other teaching or a lesson. But right now, like to me, this is what makes sense. And what Saurabh said, that was my confusion too. कि कोई मार रहा तो मारी जाओ, खाई जाओ. But and so I started practicing that in real life. I'm literally fighting, like I said, a case with somebody, and in that interaction, so I experimented with this. So that brought me like, so something felt right. It's like something felt right about that. So just sharing my experience on this verse, something like this.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yes. So I think it also connects with the disenchantment, that the worldly affairs, they cannot add on or subtract my inner contentment. And as you were sharing, if we are able to work, this inner work can go on within ourselves, that standing in the middle of the battlefield, as Saurabh was sharing that example, if I can do the right action but without getting bothered by whether it will be a win situation or a lose situation. And so this parallel work, if this can go on, only then it can help. Otherwise, just kind of taking all the insult and inside, just ruminating and being in the same state of affairs, very clingy and very sticky self of mind, in the sticky state of mind, then it doesn't do any good. So parallelly, this way, the way that we are discussing, the way of the Bodhisattva, it's parallelly a lot of inner work, as Jasmine was sharing. So the inner work is very essential. It's not that just the outer is happening and inwardly I'm just like frozen. The inner work is parallelly happening. I'm parallelly connecting the mind back to its source, the source of stillness from which it arises. you know Keeping the mind back home along with the breath, and taking that as more concrete and real than whatever may happen outside, which will always keep on changing. Yeah, so this inner
I
state.
love that's what you that's whatever. I love
Yeah,
what you said, that whatever happens outside cannot take anything, add on or take anything.
yeah.
I think you said it in one of the sessions too, and I think that line really helped me in that. Like it can't. And I think it actually makes you take better action,
Yeah.
in some ways. So beautiful. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. So what you were sharing, I think this inner state, this is absolutely crucial, because uh, then everything makes sense, and that's why they say that truth cannot be put into any formula. So the same action is done by a Krishna, who, when he kills Kansa, then it is called Uddhar. In one of the talks, Dr. Alok Pandey was sharing that the same action of killing Krishna is also doing, but that is called Uddhar, that he's liberating a soul. Because if you keep on committing sins, it keeps the soul in bondage, because the soul wants to be free, and it's like more and more layers of negative karma on the soul. While the same action, if we done, as Jasmine was sharing, from a state of an egoistic consciousness, then it is called vad, or murder, or killing, and that then it's unjust. So it's very amazing that we cannot put it into any formula, and it's the inner intention that matters, which you were sharing. The inner intention matters, that where am I operating from? Is the case that I am fighting, if I win, it will add on to my ego, aggrandize my ego, and put the other at a lower position? Or is the case being fought for a whatever just reason? Or in other case, which she was sharing, Tenzin Palmo was sharing, that maybe I don't need the case, because the money was only for her profit, right? And she said that it's a sibling thing. I don't need that much of money, and why to destroy my own peace for that? So I take all the, whatever you have to, you take the money and I keep my peace. And whatever I have enough for this lifetime. How short is our life anyway? So again, I think it's a beautiful thing that truth cannot be put into any formula. So it will always be context to context based. And yet this verse is beautiful. We cannot say that the verse is not beautiful, and we can experiment with this because the more we experiment with this, in our petty troubles, petty fights where we mostly waste our energy, at least there we can rest our mind. I don't need to prove myself in those petty affairs. Let the victory belong to the other one. Hmm? And also, when we meet such people who trouble us from outward situation, maybe a difficult person who is troubling, or an insulting person doing so much of it helps us practice compassion and patience, because it is very easy to be compassionate and friendly to people who are kind to me. Very easy. We know all the friends that we are. I am a friend of Saurabh, I am a friend of Jasmine. How easy to be compassionate. But if the person is attacking in nature, how good, how well I can be compassionate there. So it's a test. So that's why we thank the other person to play that role, so that I can work on myself and practice true compassion. Because the person that is speaking about insult and whatever attack is happening from outside, that person also is not in a good state of being. How much he would be suffering if he is hurling abuses on me. So it makes me feel compassion when I enter into his shoes. It makes me more compassionate, that instead of getting back with him to him with a lot of hurt, can I be compassionate? Can I be friendly with him, because he's also undergoing a turmoil. So that invokes compassion, that invokes kindness. So that's why we feel thankful to such parties, and we all have such parties in our houses and families and our circles, especially for this reason, so that we can practice compassion, so that we can let our innate goodness grow. So thank you for playing that role, so that I can really inculcate and flower and blossom true goodness and compassion within. So it's almost like a shortcut to enlightenment, because then the focus is not out there, the focus is inside. And that's the crux of the matter, that why we are not able to attain true realization, why we are not able to work within ourselves and attain our true Buddha nature or reclaim it, because of all the time our focus is outward. And when we become disenchanted and hopeless from the outward world, that not to expect happiness from there, then we turn within. So that's why we say it's a shortcut to Buddhahood or realization. So there is something that Jasmine is sharing from Sunlit Path. And with the growth of sensitivity, there is also the growth of capacity for suffering. But there is the counterpart, that is to the extent to which one is in relation with the psychic being, our true consciousness, one faces the circumstances of life in an altogether different way. So true equanimity comes when I am united with my true stillness and consciousness within, and with a kind of inner freedom which makes one capable of withdrawing from a circumstance and not feeling the shock in the ordinary way. Beautiful. You can face the difficulty or outer things with calm, peace, and sufficient inner knowledge not to be troubled. So, on one side, you are more sensitive, and on the other, you have more strength to deal with the sensitivity. So it's really beautiful and totally apt for what we were discussing. Thank you for bringing this up. So the more I get disenchanted from the outward situation, that not to depend on the material existence for my lasting happiness and contentment, I turn within, I unite with my true consciousness, And hence I can take everything that comes and goes with more equanimity, more inner strength. So being connected with our true consciousness, which in the words of Mother is psychic being, that gives us the true strength. While if I always depend on outer situations and circumstances for my happiness and joy, I will always be feeling miserable and weak. So that's really very powerful. So I'll just read something from here I have on the same verse. So there was a mystic who was called Milarepa, and somebody gave him out of jealousy poisoned yogurt, just like Mirabai. Mirabai was given poison, and she drank it. What did she say? Okay, everything is Krishna, so Krishna is making me drink this, and she drank it, and it didn't kill. So, um, and even if it kills, it's nothing actually, because when we are united with our true consciousness, then leaving the mortal body is not of that much of significance. Uniting with the true consciousness is more of a significance. So Milarepa also drank the poisoned yogurt, who viewed everything as dreams and illusions, and he calmly drank the yogurt. So that's the beauty, that the more we detach from the outer appearances, thinking them as solid and real, the less they have a grip over us. The more stability, inner stability it gives us. And that's why being grateful to the outer situations, which gave us a chance to find this strength in us. Good that there was no ground I could find out there in any relationship. That's why I could find a ground within, this inner stability. Yeah. So I'll just read something and then we can listen to the other teaching. Yeah. And then he says that if we are listening to all these teachings and not really putting it into practice, then what's the point? So he says, if our spiritual practices are not compatible with how we behave as human beings, even though we may look like excellent practitioners who have been in retreat in the mountains or whatever, we may still find ourselves inept at getting along with others when we leave our seclusion. So this is our challenge. This is our gymnasium, the gymming that we do. That in my meditative being, I am really very calm, cool. But the moment I begin interacting with a person who is difficult, again I lose my calm. I mean, what's the point? What's the point of the practice? So to see that I still take outer appearances as so solid and I still want to make a point, prove a point, this clingy mind I'm not able to leave. And somehow it appears to me that coming back, as again I was sharing with you, that the practice of shamatha, the practice of centering the mind with the breath, that gives rise to a very strong inner stability. And thinking of rest, everything, thoughts, feelings, whatever comes and goes, as fleeting, ephemeral, something like dream, and stabilizing ourselves with the mindfulness of breath. And that takes us completely in the present moment. And in the present moment, we realize that, wow, the life is not too bad after all. We have many little conditions of happiness in the present moment. While if I keep on ruminating about past, future, and this person and that person, then there is no end to the suffering. So when we become mindful of the breath, when we practice this shamatha meditation, bringing mind again and again back to breath, and regarding all else as fleeting and hence not giving much attention to that, it really gives us a lot of stability, which in other words, equanimity. I can go through everything with equanimous poise. And that is the reflection of my true whatever I'm reading. Otherwise, what's the point when I lose calm over the little happening, that happens in my office or workplace or at home. What's the point of practice? Yeah. So anything here before we hear the next teaching? Okay, so I'm going to share something from um, yeah, this one. Also, Pema Chodron, she shares a very little exercise where she shares that whenever you see something happening out there, like the mind is focused outward, maybe on a person, maybe you are sitting in an airport and looking at people out there or a workplace, then she shares a practice to do, which is very simple and very humbling. And she shares that whatever you see happening out there, you say, okay, just like me. So just like I want peace, the other one also likes peace, is wanting the peace. Just like I am focused in entertainment, the other one is also wanting it. So let us hear this little technique. Maybe it helps us, it gives us a little tool.
I like that.
Well, it's really helpful. You can do it anytime. Like, for instance, sitting and waiting, for anything. You can just look around at people and whether they seem stressed or happy or whatever, you can say, just like me, we are alike. Just like me, that person really wants to be loved. That person doesn't want to suffer. That person doesn't want physical pain. That person doesn't want hatred coming towards them.
Right, just like
that
me.
person, just like me, just like me. But so it's very, very useful if, like, you're in these irritating situations like a traffic jam. It's so
Or at the airports. People
or-
get so frustrated at the
Oh,
airport.
I know. So you sit there and you just start, instead of fuming, which gets you nowhere except,
More fuming.
more fuming, you start looking at the people in the other cars or other people sitting in the airport or thing. And just like me, these people had someplace to go and they're being delayed. And just like me, they're fretting about it. And just like me, they're just human beings who
Want to be where they are trying to get to.
and just like me, it would really be helpful if there was some other way they could deal with it.
Yes.
So here's some advice.
Yes.
The advice would be just start seeing the humanity of all the people in the cars around you.
I would have to say that
So I thought this was very humbling and grounding, because most of the times we are always trying to categorize people that I am right or I'm wrong and the other one is this and that. So this categorizing is happening all the time. The egoistic consciousness always wants to box and categorize the limited mind. So if we really want to grow compassion in us, grow groundedness and humility in us, so I found it very beautiful that whenever I see something out there, and Mother also talks about this, that whatever you find ridiculous out there, in other person, just look at it as a mirror, and the same thing you also do, but you don't see yourself that way, and in the other person, it as if it aggravates itself and it gives you a mirror. So if we can take that as a mirror, that just like this, I also am like this, just like that person is annoying, I'm also annoying at many times. It gives us the same ground, it like I'm not trying to prove that I'm superior, inferior, and we are all on the same ground. We are all in the same boat, and we are all wanting to have better means to sail through. So that was very humbling, when I listened to that practice. So there's something else also on the same lines, dealing in with difficult situations. Let's hear this and then we will take a break, like a pause for reflection before we move to verse 6, which is also together with the verse 5.
So what kind of world are we creating? It's worth asking yourself this question. And it's not a question. It's more the question is, what kind of world am I creating? What am I adding to? Am I adding to this deep, unconditional love for self and other that is so healing? Or am I adding to polarization and aggression and even violence? It's really worth asking ourselves this. And then the approach here is so tender and forgiving that if I find myself about to go off on somebody, or right in the middle of it, I say, "Ooh, I am screaming here." Or I just lost it completely and I'm already slammed the door and I'm standing out in the hall. I mean, wherever you are in the chain reaction of reactivity, you know, you can pause and just ask yourself, you know, look what I'm doing. And then instead of denigrating yourself, instead of me criticizing myself, instead of me shaming myself, instead of me wallowing in guilt for the next 17 years, at least, there's this very forgiving quality which is epitomized by the Shambhala meditation, which is just feel the rage, feel the shame, feel the guilt, feel the remorse, feel the resentment, feel the heat, feel the fire, just as it is, just as it is, just as it is. Not escalating further, not repressing, not turning it into something hard.
So I think this is a very powerful and very useful practice, what she was sharing, that whenever something is happening, like criticism, insult, to connect with the raw feeling in the body. What she was sharing, you know, just feel it as it is. And when we are mindful of the breathing, which we were sharing in the beginning, you know, when I used to, now I'm practicing bringing mind to the breathing again and again. And with the breath, I come back to the body. Then it becomes easier for me to feel the rawness of whatever experience is happening. So instead of focusing on the outward person who triggered, everything considered as trigger, I'm not going into the content of the trigger, I'm just experiencing the raw experience in the body. And with the breath, I go through that experience, like become very intimate with that experience, whether it is fear, anxiety, you know, maybe an insult that is being hurled upon me. So to feel that rawness of insult in the body. Now, most of the times, what is happening is when I get an insult from outside, I'm actually not experiencing the insult because I am thinking about the insult. You know, how dare that person give, you know, that word to me, and I have done this in the past and that in the future. So instead of getting close to our experience, we run away from our experience, which is getting lost in the thoughts and feelings domain. While the intimacy of the experience is when we bring ourselves back to the body, and if it is guilt, if it is remorse, as she was sharing, insult, anger, you know, maybe hurt, to tune into the rawness of experience by tuning with the breath and coming to the body, staying close to ourselves, you know, this unconditional friendship with ourselves. And then I will not be blaming outward anyone. Why? Because whatever happened on the outward helped me bring closer to myself, you know, bring myself closer to myself. Isn't that beautiful? So no matter whatever happened, ugliest of experiences, if I'm able to use it as raw material to come back home to myself, it is really a cheap bargain in front of all of that. And when I tune it into the body, when I tune with my own breath and come home to myself, become intimate with my experience, then that is unconditionally friendship, unconditional friendship with myself, which all of us require. Because without that, I can never be truly in friendship with anyone else. Knowing my darkest of parts in my body, going through them, as she was sharing, just as it is. So when I'm thinking about the insult, thinking about the experience, outward experience that happened, I'm actually running away from experience. This is something very different. While if I come back to the body and tune in, okay, where am I feeling this? Let me stay with this. Okay, heart constricted, maybe throat choked. Let me, with breath, go through that experience. Then some magic truly happens. Then I make use of that experience, bring it on the path. Any outward experience I can bring on the path. And that's why I can be grateful to that outward trigger or person or situation, that thank you, because of you I could tune back within myself. But if we are not able to tune back within ourselves, then we keep on blaming others, and that why did this happen to me, and why that person did that to me, and all the vicious loop that happens again and again, because I am not able to use that trigger as an experience to connect truly with myself. But if I use it as a raw material, then it is impossible that I would be blaming others, no matter how bad the situation would be. So that's really very powerful, coming back to the rawness of experience with the body, in the body, with the breath going through it, coming close to it, no matter how hard it is. So, anything here? Anyone? You can take a pause.
I think we keep forgetting this fundamentals always. So what is the best way to, is there any shortcut to keep this reminding always to oneself?
Yes, Saurabh. I think it's okay because we all forget. So we have already, many sessions we discussed that what to do about this forgetfulness. The only way is to remind. If I know I forget, and that's why we have these sessions, or we have such good books or friends who can remind us that the only way is to come back home. The only way is to come back home. And we need constant reminders. It's not only you who forgets, all of us forget. And the only way is to, whenever in the middle of the situation, if you get reminded of, come back home in the body with the breath, home to yourself. But it's good that to have the practice continued even when the days are okay and good and not much of turmoil is happening. Because when there is a practice and a habit of mindfulness with the body that is developing, then in the turmoil times it helps me. Otherwise, uh, we can't really, as Kabir says, Sukh mein sumiran na kiya. Sumiran is remembrance, remembering the right path. Sukh mein sumiran na kiya, dukh mein karte yaad. कहे कबीर ता दास की कौन सुने फरियाद. अब कौन सुनेगा? In the middle of, suddenly the habit will not get changed. So the only shortcut is to remind, to give us constant reminders, and to practice, and to practice. So I'll just go through verse 6. Why I'm taking this today? Because it's very connected. So maybe we'll need around 10-15 minutes more, and we'll do verse 6 also. view those who harm us as spiritual teachers. So this is very connected with the verse 5 that we just did. Even when someone whom I have helped, we often have these cases of betrayal. My bestest friend, how could he betray me? I helped that person in the troubled times, and now see, that person is not with me, something like that. Even when someone whom I have helped, or in whom I have placed great hopes, harms me very unfairly. So it is unjust. It's not that it's a just happening. Harms me very unfairly. May I view that person as a true spiritual teacher. This is the challenge. And we can listen to a short teaching on this. Just a second, I'll put it on. You can close this, and go here. Yeah.
And likewise, even when someone I have helped, you see, it's something, that really hurts the heart. Someone I've helped and whom I place great hopes, and then they turn around and bite me. Like a dog that you've been petting, or a cat, and then suddenly it turns around and oh. I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher. The reason, again, is because when we do something for somebody and we take care of them and we have lots of hopes in them, an underlying motivation is that they will be grateful. And that, therefore, they will always like us and be nice to us because we've been so kind to them. And therefore, when they turn around after all that and show this non-gratitude, or they do something which really hurts us, and we think, well, we did so much for you, how could you do that to me? Then that shows us very clearly, first of all, our underlying egoic motivations, and the fact that we cannot just accept them how they are because we are still hoping they're going to do what we want them to do and not do what they want to do. And for this reason, because it shows us so clearly our own underlying selfish motivations, even when we think we're being so kind, it's like a spiritual teacher.
So this is something, so when I'm doing something, what she is sharing, that it reveals to me my egoistic motivation. And what she means by this is that there is a want within me. Again, as we were discussing, there is a want within me from the material existence. This clingy mind, the desire self, in mother's words. So when I have done something good to someone else, and in return I don't get good back, and I feel disappointed, so that disappointment tells me that there was a clingy self there. There was a want there that that person should respect me back, and so again hope has arisen. We were talking earlier of disenchantment from the material existence, that when I am totally disenchanted, that nothing in this material world can give me lasting satisfaction and contentment, but something is there with hope. Again and again we have hope. Oh, maybe this person, maybe that friendship, at least that person, my sibling or my spouse. So to a greater or a lesser degree, we always are clingy that some or the other lasting satisfaction will arrive from this material existence. So when this kind of a situation happens, it reveals to me that I still am working and operating from the desire self, which wants and wants and wants and wants. So that's why gratefulness comes, or gratitude comes, that thank you for showing me, Chinmay, thank you for showing me that I was still hoping. And then I can practice detachment. Thank you for letting me know that I was still wanting and expecting something from this relationship. That's why I am disappointed. So take it on the path, use it as a raw material for inner work. And since detachment is good for us, it's a very neutral state of mind, and it keeps us very light and simple. So thank you for letting me know that I was still attached. I wanted a certain kind of a response from you, since I had given so much love to you. So that's why one feels grateful to expose that kind of a clingy nature, that I'm still having that. It's not that I'm above the clingy mind. you Very beautiful it is. There's something else also I've here at 22. Let me just bring it up. How to take difficulties on the path. Something regarding that. Yeah.
Use that as an incentive to go forth, to really look into the root cause of their problems, which wasn't just other people and external circumstances, but their own clinging mind, their own self-cherishing mind, which was the real root cause of their problems, and how they were able to let go, and from that to become liberated. So this ability to take whatever happens to us and make use of it, when good things happen to us, then we can use that as like, fuel on the path. And when we hit a wall of real problems and difficulties, and people disappoint us or turn against us, people we thought were so trustworthy and kind, suddenly they turn round, and like a snake, they bite us just when we think that they're the most friendly of people. Rather than just putting the blame on them, or on muling to ourselves, and getting depressed and unhappy, and just upset and angry and all these other very negative emotions, we can say, okay, this happened, I didn't want it to happen, but it's happened, okay. Now what can I learn? How can I use this? How can I take this onto the path? Because if we really understand that anything which happens to us can be used, spiritually speaking, then, it helps us very much to get beyond hope and fear. Because we're always hoping things will go right and worrying that things will not go right. But if we recognize that inwardly we have the strength, the courage to deal with whatever happens when it happens, then, that gets rid of so many of our worries. I mean, as Shantideva said, if something happens and there's a solution, then why worry? And if there's no solution, then what's the point of worrying? That gets rid of a lot of troubles.
So I think this has happened with me also, and personally experienced this something like a betrayal or something, where, and betrayal is nothing but my state of mind. So I feel that I could have gotten better, from better response from outer situation, and I didn't get that. So that's what I call betrayal. When someone, as the verse says, in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreats me very unjustly, I will view that person as a true spiritual teacher. And for me, it was a beautiful revelation that, oh my God, I'm attached. I didn't know, because as Saurabh was sharing, that we forget to bring the mind home. And we are so lost in thoughts and hopes and fears and anxieties and, all that can go on, that we have no clue that we are so clingy and attached. So when something did not happen the way I wanted it to happen, or I did not get goodness back in return, it just tells me, reveals to me, as she was sharing, that I am attached. So instead of trying to blame the other person, can I take it as my inner work that, okay, time to stay with detachment, time to come back home to myself. I was still having hope. It means I was not yet disenchanted from the world. And disenchantment is very important on our spiritual journey, because the more we get enchanted by this and that and this and that, the more we will grind ourselves between the poles of duality, running towards hope, running away from fear, wanting happiness, running away from suffering, endlessly, for lifetimes we have done that. How long do we want to continue? And that's why human birth has been considered so precious, that this is the time where you can connect with your true consciousness, know your true consciousness, and disconnect from the surface fleeting movements, and uh, get totally disenchanted from samsara, from the world, that is not going to bring you lasting happiness. Now I can be of benefit to others living in this world, knowing that nothing can bring me happiness, lasting joy and happiness, totally taking responsibility on myself, keeping the mind home with the breath and the body. Now I can offer myself to whatever is there, to the world. Now I can be of benefit, because the more I want things from the world, ambition, greed, jealousy, the more I want, the more I am a poison for the world. And this is a possibility for each one of us. It's not that only a few people are to travel this path. Those who don't travel this path will suffer. And if I have suffered enough, isn't it a good time to get on the path? Use the suffering as coming close to myself, rather than blaming, who brought me suffering, and endlessly churning in that loop. Yeah, so any reflections, anyone, anything? Yes, in the beginning, yes, Snehi. So this sense of emptiness, the inner space that we feel, the stillness and silence in our inner space, uh, that we feel, that's home. That's where all the things are arising from. Where are thoughts coming from? They arise out of stillness, and they go back into the stillness. And if we truly want to connect with our true source and intelligence, true wisdom, true compassion, true knowledge, we have to familiarize ourselves with this inner space. And this is the space from which all of us are running mostly. We don't want to face that emptiness. So we call up a friend, because I can't handle that emptiness. What we, in other terms, we also call a sense of void. But the more aware we get of this void, exactly, it is discomforting. And that's why, one of the teachers, Gabor Mate, he says that it's discomforting to come back to home to ourselves. That's why people run towards addictions. Addiction of Netflix or YouTube, or even books can be addiction. Calling up a friend whenever I'm feeling uneasy, just call up a friend, and because I can't be with that unease. So being home, or bringing mind home, is to, as Prema Chaudron was sharing, that to connect with the breath and to stay with that unease, to feel the nature of that unease. And slowly we see that unease disappears into emptiness. So it is discomforting, and to be able to stay with that discomfort is beautiful. Yeah. Yes, Jasmine.
Oh, what you were saying, could we run away from discomfort? And if you even stay with the discomfort, in my experience, वो जो calmness, मुझे calmness में नहीं रहना आ रहा था. I think I shared in one of the sessions too. Really, पहले तो it was like something so new. But it's so I consciously like put my phone away, not reading like for the whole day. But seriously, it was so hard. मेरे को कुछ बोलने के लिए, like it, you kind of see how much senseless things you do because when you're in the not that ultimate. I don't know if that's the as empty as I have felt. But वो calmness के साथ, it was funny. You know, after a day, I was like, the whole day I was just observing that, like, you know, what was going on in your mind too. It's funny कि हम भागते हैं पहले suffering से, calmness से, but I guess it's out of habit. कि जब वो calmness आती है तो, you know, it's like the devil, you know, sort of thing. You're more familiar with this. It's so unfamiliar, like, to me. So it's almost like next day I was like कि थोड़ा सा normal सा, थोड़ा सा वो चाहिए, you know, and I, it's funny. It was like I'm jumping between two states, but by choice. But I don't know. Just enlighten us, some
Yeah,
invitation.
absolutely.
But it was funny to
Yes.
see how it goes. But
Yeah, yeah. And as you said, it's just because I am so habituated to be anxious and always restless that now the calmness also feels, it, although it's a peaceful state of being, but I can't handle that peace, because we are not used to it. The mind is not used to it. Yeah. Just a matter of habit. And that's what, what are people doing, in caves and retreats and forests, being alone in solitude? What are they doing? And one of the things I feel is that we have to do is to stabilize ourselves in this inner space, to really familiarize ourselves with this inner space. Now this should become a new habit. And the more I familiarize myself with the inner space and emptiness and the stillness of the being and the breath, then I will not be able to do any action out of a sense of lack. That's the beauty. Because most of the actions that we do are done out of a sense of lack, and that is the egoistic consciousness. Why do I marry? Because I was feeling so empty. Why do I want to have relationship? Because I'm feeling so empty, I can't handle it. Why do I go out and maybe travel or whatever? Because of this sense of lack, I can't handle it. So the same things can be done. It's not marriage can be done, relationships can be had, and other things can be done. But if their sons they're not done out of a sense of lack, then we are away from that cycle of hope and fear that this is going to give me fulfillment. And we see that this is the root of addiction. This is the root of addiction, that I can't handle my emptiness. But we don't know, the more we come close to this emptiness and stillness, the more we realize that this is not an empty emptiness. It is a pregnant emptiness full of good qualities, full of our innate qualities: goodness, love, compassion, joy, knowledge, wisdom, intuition. It's a pregnant emptiness. And that's, yeah, full of life. Exactly. So slowly we discover all this goodness, as we become habituated to this inner space and stillness. That's the beauty. That's what people are doing in their solitary retreats, I believe, in caves and forests, stabilizing themselves in this, knowing myself as this awareness, knowing myself as this emptiness and stillness. And it's beautiful. Once you get a taste of it, it can be really beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so any last comments, any reflections, anyone? We have so many S today. Saurabh, Snehi, Supna, Shreya. So many S's. Yeah. So hopelessness is beautiful. Hopelessness is the ground of the spiritual path. Becoming hopeless. So it's good that all the things that I wanted, I couldn't get. because it can get me sooner on the journey within. Disenchantment or hopelessness is beautiful, so that I can come home to myself sooner than later. Okay, so thank you. Thanks everyone for joining in, for sharing, for listening together, and for, yeah, for this collective beauty of reflecting
Thank
upon these verses. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.